everybody, and welcome to the 22nd episode of The Customer and the Service. I'm Sean Petrowski, and with me, as always, is my co-host, John Lemazny.
Hey, everybody.
How you doing, John?
I'm doing well, Sean. How are you?
I think I'm getting sick or allergies. Don't know yet, but so if I sound a little more deep voiced than usual, that's why.
I hope you feel better soon.
Thank you. Me too. We've had a pretty good pre-conversation. Every episode before we get started, John and I usually have a little conversation to get things going for us. Sometimes it's as long as 10 to 15 minutes. Other times it's as short as 30 seconds. And tonight we were discussing our two topics for the evening, and I think one of them comes from my topic tonight, comes from some personal experience I've had. And the other one, John's topic, I think is something that I think about a lot in my professional life. So I'm curious to talk about that. But how was it that you phrased my topic, John? Because you did it so eloquently. It was so much better than the way I phrased it.
Well, you were talking about it, and what it made me think of was not fully embracing technology mediation. In other words, you have the opportunity to use technology to make customer service better or your service better, and you only half-heartedly embrace it. Right.
So the reason I want to talk about this tonight was because it's something I've run up against many times while trying to interface with companies. But most recently this week, I was trying to contact my my insurance company to get a rider added to my homeowner's insurance. And recently, my insurance agent retired from the business, shut down his entire practice. So I was reassigned to another agent in the company.
Okay.
And so I've had this guy since I think January 1st was my first day with my new agent. I haven't really had any interactions with him because I haven't really needed anything. With my old agent, I had a woman who's basically like my kind of account executive kind of person, and I had her email address. And anytime I needed anything done to my account, I could just fire off an email to her. We'd get it done through email, and if she needed payment information, I'd call her on the phone and give the payment information over the phone. But 9 times out of 10, everything that we needed to do could be done through email, whether it was a change to my policy, I needed to get specific information, I needed copies of documents. I could just fire an email off, and sure enough, it will be done in minutes, no problem.
Okay.
So I had to contact my new agent. At first, I didn't even know if my woman that I normally deal with was still employed or not by my agency, so I emailed her, got a bounce back. So I had to, then contact the new agent for the first time. So I logged into my insurance company's website, and there's a form that you can fill out to contact, and described what I was looking for. I said I wanted to add a rider, and they have a specific section in that form of how would you like to be contacted back: telephone call, email, or by actual mail, like through the regular snail mail. I was in training all last week, so the phone was not going to work, so I specifically checked email. So I wrote out my problem, was as detailed as possible, and then I got a response back at the close of business on Friday, and the response was, call us. Here's our number, call us. Well, I knew the number, and if I wanted to call, I would have called. So my reply was, with my old agent, I used to be able to take care of this stuff over email with no problem. Is that not going to be the case anymore with you guys, or what? And luckily, I did get a response, and the woman said, absolutely, I can help you over email. But I was a little perturbed by that. It's like I'm trying to... I specifically told them the way of communication that was best for me for this particular issue, and they are telling me to utilize another channel to get in touch with them. And all I'm looking for is, there's probably a form that they need to send me, which they have probably in a PDF format. Email it to me, fill it out, I can scan it, email it back to them, and we're done. You know what I mean? There's no reason for a phone call or anything else. It's ridiculous. And so that was, it was kind of frustrating, and it got me thinking about when I bought my house. I bought a house, almost 2 years ago now, and that entire process was conducted through a fax machine.
Yeah.
I mean, ridiculous. I mean, we're 2000. I bought the house in 2011, right? And I'm getting 30-page faxes sent to me. I'm getting, having to sign documents and faxing 30 pages, just a scanner, an email. And it blows my mind that the companies.
Yeah, I mean, we're at the point now where we can do these things completely on screen. It's kind of silly that fax machines still exist. I mean, I know there are a lot of people who are like, "Oh, I use a fax every day," but I don't understand that. We have the technology. Why are we not using it?
Yeah, it drives me crazy, and I think like in a lot of ways too. Like, there's so much stuff that can be done digitally, and I feel like it's actually better to do it that way. Like, for example, like the quality of a document that you get through a fax machine is not very good. I feel like it's also very easily intercepted.
It's manipulable. You can do whatever you want to a fax copy and get away with it because it has no track. I mean, it's not as easy as email is from the server standpoint or the end user standpoint to determine the origin of the email or to determine the origin of fax. It's nearly impossible.
Right. So, I know that there is a legal precedent that states that, signed fax documents are legal documents. And, you just pointed out the most obvious flaw in fax communication in modern age, and that's, that it's highly susceptible to fraud. And, you think that organizations that deal with in heavily legal areas like insurance, like home ownership, mortgages, that they would be more embracive of new technologies. You could make a PDF file and require a digital signature and lock it down with a certificate, and there's all kinds of things to verify identification and make the document secure, and nobody's really using this stuff.
Well, I'm going to reveal something here because I think it brings light to the conversation. Very often, I will get a document in the mail for my consulting where I'm supposed to either print it out, sign it, and scan it back in, and then send it back, or fax it. And I'll tell you what I do. I spent a half an hour one day just signing my signature in Inkscape using my Wacom tablet. And my signature, I got it to a point where it would be easily recognizable as mine. I got it, I did it again and again until it was like, because my handwriting is horrible. And because it's all digital, because unless somebody asked to see the paper copy of it, they wouldn't necessarily know that it was not actually signed. So when I get a PDF from somebody, I'll open up the PDF in Inkscape, import my signature, place it on the PDF, and save it again as a PDF and send it back. So, and I get paid every time. It's like it may not be exactly what they had expected, but I'm circumventing any security restrictions that they thought they were putting in by making me go through that process. I'm not sure why it's not just as easy for me to send an email, which is really the place where any authentication comes in. An email from me, which can be spoofed too, but it's as likely as me not actually signing the document. There's got to be a better way. Maybe if everybody had thumbprint scanners or something. But I don't touch paper unless I get a bill. I don't touch paper unless I absolutely have to. I don't have pens in my living space. I do not have pens. I have like pens for art. That's what I have pens for. And anytime I have to sign something, it's like I have to go find something to do that with. It seems so antiquated.
I agree. The one thing that I kind of see all the time, I've spent a lot of time, I'd say in the last 2 years or so, really delving into the capabilities of Acrobat Professional. And, say what you want about Adobe and their software, but a lot of the problems that we're talking about here can be solved with this piece of software like Acrobat Professional. And like as you talked about,
signature capability, I mean like digital signature capability, not it expects that you would use a I guess it's public key encryption that they employ.
well, you can even just do as what you're doing. You can actually create an image signature and actually just apply that image signature to the line on the document. So they do it to support it both ways. But I'm amazed every day about the things that people don't know you can do in Acrobat Pro. I mean, I work with faculty and I show them different things and they're like, what? And it's like, you've opened up the gates. And, I was just having a conversation with my girlfriend this weekend and we were talking about something and she was just talking about, I use this program and it's great because I can, scan in documents and I can annotate and highlight and, and I'm like, are you talking about, Acrobat Professional? And she's like, yeah, the Adobe. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. So, my girlfriend is she's somewhat technical, but not overly technical. And, she's utilizing Acrobat Pro.
Who falls into the overly technical category, Sean?
That would be people like you and I. I consider us overly technical.
Got it.
And here she is. She's utilizing Acrobat Pro in the exact ways that we're advocating. And she was telling me that she's like one of a few people, like she's in the minority in her office that utilizes Acrobat that way. And she's in the health insurance industry, so another insurance industry that could benefit from digital documentation. And she's a digital pioneer, if you will, for her company. And so, it just highlighted a point, like people really don't take the time to learn about the tools that they use day in and day out. And if they did, they probably would become way more productive. You know what I mean? Like, we take a lot of things for granted. I know, like, I'm not an expert in Microsoft Word or Microsoft, or Excel. And I probably could be using those tools better. But there are times where I'm like, what I'm trying to do, I know there's probably an advanced function in this, that I can utilize to help. And I'll look it up and I'll find it. That's how I taught myself how to do a mail merge like 10 years ago, and that was a huge, people used to be like, oh, mail merges are so ridiculously hard. And looked it up and I was like, if you have a spreadsheet with your info, and your letter, it's the easiest thing in the world. So I just wish more organizations would honor their technology communication choices as well as embrace the tools that they have at their disposal to provide easier service, easier methods of communications with their customers, and then ultimately provide better customer service.
I agree completely, and I was really excited when these big networked scanners and printers started to show up in enterprises in order to have you scan something and make a digital copy where you could email it out to 6 people or whatever. And there was still a bit of hesitation, I think, on many people's part because people trust paper. Unfortunately, people trust paper, and there can be a lot more trust given to binary code, to digits. The other thing that this sparked for me was in my graduate education, we spent a lot of time in talking about communication and digital communication. And this is also my area of expertise when I teach, is digital media communication. And there is not enough attention paid, for the most part, for people's preference of communication. Where I, for example, get SMS-based text messages all day. Unfortunately, because of my work style and because of my lifestyle, I'm not usually looking at my phone unless I am outside of my house or outside of someplace where I don't have a computer, or someplace where I do have a computer. If I have a computer, I'm usually in front of it. I don't typically look at my phone unless it rings or unless there's a reason specifically to look at my phone, because I have most of the capability in my browser. A plugin that I have for Chrome is called Mighty Text that allows my texts to come into my phone. Because I have the Mighty Text app on my phone, it talks to my browser. My browser shows me the text. I'm able to respond to it. It goes back to my phone and goes back out. The only reason that I have that is because I spend so little time texting. And yet a lot of people use that as their main mode of communication.
Yeah.
I will almost always, especially if it's a casual conversation or a casual relationship, if you send me a text and we started to go back and forth and we went back more than 5 times, I would say, do you mind if we switch to chat? Not because of the cost, but because of the way that I prefer to do work. I don't mind reading, typing, and chatting. I mind the limitations that the phone places on my ability to communicate. And I have a little bit of a workaround with this Chrome-based app, but I would prefer that people just know, and most people do if they communicate with me a lot over chat, over SMS, that if you're going to send me a message over SMS, don't expect me to see it until tomorrow when I pick up my phone again. And I apologize for that, but that's the truth. If you really need me to get something, send it to me in Facebook or send it to me over Google Chat, which I'm signed in all day long, either by my phone or by my computer, or if I'm not available there, chances are I'm not actually available. People who have paid attention to that and know that SMS is not a preferred method for me will get a hold of me quicker. I'll be able to respond quicker. And by all means, I know email is dead, but I love email. Email means searchability. Email means it doesn't go away. Email means I have an archive. Email means it's endless storage. Email means it's backed up. Email means it's a standard by which I can have some reliance. You know, if it's in my email, it means I have it. It means it's showing up. It means I can star it. It means that I can generate a calendar entry out of it. There's all these things that I can do with email that I cannot do easily with SMS. It's really difficult for me to send a file of any size, of any importance over SMS. You can do it with MMS, but it is not what it is for. And if you start to think about the communication channel as a set of preferences and a set of capabilities, you start to make more sensible choices about the way that you use a communication. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this over video, for example?
As opposed to just audio, or as opposed to something else?
Well, as opposed to something else. In other words, we're using video because there are a lot of benefits to the video. There's the ability for us to, for example, see each other's expressions. And so we're able to react to that emotion. We're doing it over video because while it would be nice to visit with you in person, it would probably be inconvenient.
Right.
You're not feeling very well. You probably don't want company right now, but you don't mind turning on your video camera and having a conversation. Why are we not doing this over phone? Well, it would be really hard to broadcast a phone conversation.
Right.
Why are we, there are a whole bunch of reasons why we choose video for this. Why are we not doing this over SMS? Because John doesn't like SMS. That's why.
Well, you bring up a great point, and recently I was working with a plumber, not a plumber, a heating and air conditioning technician, and I was trying to,
not a plumber.
No, and I was trying to, get an appointment set up, and I kept playing phone tag with the woman in the office,
Of course.
And all of a sudden, I got a text from the woman in the office,
And
and we
luckily,
ended
it
up,
was a cell phone and not a house phone.
I guess, but what ended up happening was we set up the appointment through texting, and then I had actually follow-up issues after they came out. There were all kinds of issues that I had to settle after the fact, set up 2 additional appointments, all kinds of stuff. At that point, I knew if I text this woman, she'll respond to me right away. If I call her and leave a message, she probably won't. So I learned that lesson. She didn't say, please use text, but I learned her habit and then was able to utilize text as a solution to expedite my service. Just like when I was working with my old agent for insurance, I learned that the woman assigned to my account liked email, so I could email her and get things done quickly. So, more organizations need to make their channels available to people, and they need to also utilize the channels that work best for their customers. So if you're going to give a feedback option, email, telephone, snail mail, text message, whatever, fax, honor that. If a customer's given that choice and they make a particular choice, a company needs to honor that choice.
Hey, Sean, do you in your browser, do you use Gmail?
I do, and I'm actually going to be leaving Gmail soon.
Really? Why?
Because of Google's discontinuation of ActiveSync technology for mobile devices and computers.
Wow.
That decision has seriously crippled my ability to be a productive individual.
Interesting.
So I'm like in a grace period right now for my mobile devices, cell phone, tablet device, and desktop and laptops aren't a problem because I have Chrome installed and I can utilize Google stuff there. But it's the mobile devices that I have that are crippled because of the discontinuation of ActiveSync, which is important for me because 90% of my day communication is done via a tablet or a smartphone, and so if I can't utilize my calendar, my contacts, and my email the way that I've been using them the past 10 years, that's not going to work for me. So I'm going to keep the email address obviously and set up a forward, but I'm going to be embracing a different platform that still supports the ActiveSync technology.
Probably Outlook.com.
Yeah.
I saw that.
It's unfortunate, believe me. I mean, I love Gmail. I think it's a great platform. I love the changes that they make to it. I always love the Google Labs stuff that you could add to it. I found tons of stuff in Google Labs that made me a very productive emailer and made my Gmail experience very productive. But, this war that's going on, unfortunately, I'm a casualty of it. And I got to make the appropriate changes so that I can continue to be as productive as I have been.
Well, there is the con argument for Gmail. I'm going to offer a little bit of a pro argument for Gmail. Do you ever use sort of the CRM discovery services for Gmail? Like there's one that's popular right now called Cloze, CLOZE, but there are others.
I don't use any of that stuff.
So what's nice about these is like you have a sidebar, and on the left-hand side you have your inbox and other mailboxes and chat. And on the other side you might have things depending on what labs you have turned on. But if you install Cloze, what it does is it pays attention to the public-facing interactions that the person who you're emailing has made. So, for example, if you sign into Facebook on Cloze, while you're in Gmail and you're looking at an email from a colleague or a client or whoever, their last 3 Facebook statuses and their Google Plus status and Twitter tweets and photos that they've sent you and all that stuff just pops up and gives you a little bit of context about who it is that you're talking about. In other words, if you were on Facebook this morning talking about a recent visit to southern New Jersey to visit some restaurant or something, it would pop up in my email. And while I'm conversing with you over email, I might glance over and notice that you visited this place that I really like and say, oh, I saw that you were in blah, blah, blah. Did you get the tortellini? And it adds to the context of the conversation. It also might be something political that I care about or agree about, and I might not know about that about you, but because you put it out publicly and I happen to miss it on Facebook, it doesn't mean that I've missed it within the context of our conversation.
I've been utilizing tools actually like that for a long time. Back in Office 2007, I used to use a plugin called Zombie, which is inbox spelled backwards. It was the first tool of its kind that would do exactly that you were talking about. And then in Outlook 2010, Microsoft released two plugins, one for LinkedIn, one for Facebook, that did exactly what you talk about. And now those plugins are just built into Outlook 2013.
Yes.
So I've been using that capability for a very long time. I love it because it gives you that context. It gives you that person's photo. You know what they look like. It's great. I love it.
Not put a photo in your contacts. It's nice that it pulls that information from somewhere else.
Exactly.
And you can set those things and say, I want emphasis on Facebook. I want emphasis on Google Plus or whatever.
It's great. I think it's a great tool, and as the enterprise communication platforms become more socialized, I think it just makes it all the more better. You know what I mean? Like, you look at Microsoft's enterprise communication platforms, Outlook, Link, SharePoint. They all have these social integration aspects which tie in LinkedIn and Facebook, and I think ultimately yield for a richer experience on both sides. If it's utilized on both sides. So, I think it's great. I like it. I'm encouraged by what the development that's being done in this space. And I look forward to seeing what future advancements come because it's exciting.
Well, I guess it would be easy for me to move into the second part of our talk. Is there anything else you wanted to say about the?
No, sir.
So the reason this is important for me is that I like to think of myself. It's not always true, but for the most part, it is true. I like to think of myself as one person. And that is a public-facing person. I'm about openness and transparency. I guess I'm not forthcoming about everything because not everything is great in my history. But for the most part, I'm very happy with who I am, and I'm willing to share that. Part of sharing that is that I'm now focusing on my consulting business, and I like to think that I can have consistency in my consulting business that align being the key word, with my personality and who I am and the things I believe in and the things that I think are right. The moral and ethical choices that I make should be supportable in my business or in my personal life. The choices and statements I make about food should be able to be made regardless of who my clients are. The feelings I have about technology may actually get in the way of me working with an organization, or not necessarily on my part, but very often on their part. They might say, oh, well, if you're not a dedicated Microsoft shop, you may want to, you may not be able to work with us very efficiently because whatever. So this idea of something like Close or Zombie or any of these where you are being presented in a certain light, and the light is whoever you are, whatever you're putting out publicly, also influences the way that people think about the way that they do business with you or the interactions that they might have with you at a work level. And I like to think that the best possible outcome is to have complete alignment between who you are personally and who you are as a person who works. This is not often the case. I imagine that you get into a bit of a conflict if you are an extremely honest person and you work in an industry where honesty is not valued. I don't want to call anybody out, but some of these must come to mind. Can you think of of an industry where honesty is not highly valued?
The legal profession?
Perhaps. And I'm sure that anybody in the legal profession would say, well, honesty is of the utmost importance in legal deeds. But very often, I think, in order to preserve the outcome of a case, something that is known by a particular party might not be shared by that party. And the benefit of which is that if a jury does not know, then it doesn't exist, right?
Right.
So that's, I guess, a perfect example. With all due respect to lawyers and the people who work in that profession, I think that they would all agree with what we're saying. But there is probably some conflict that comes in between somebody who wants to be completely, utterly honest all the time and has to, as part of their work, conceal part of who they are or part of what they believe because it does not work in the interest of the best outcome for that work. I have flaws, Sean. Sean has flaws too, but I have flaws. And those flaws are not things that I want to hide. They're things that I want to acknowledge and accept. And sometimes those flaws do not make you a perfect fit for certain situations. I think that there is a certain work philosophy that says that it does not matter who you are while you are in this office. It matters that you are representative of this office first. And I guess I have a little bit of a problem with that. I think that people should try to find. I'm just really thinking about this tonight as a concept and as a topic, so I apologize if I change my mind later. But I really do feel like there should be a complete sense of alignment between who you are personally and what you represent and the person who you are in your workplace and what you represent there. And the conflict, I think, can probably be devastating and stressful and painful if you have to maintain that difference between who you are and who you are when you work.
I think I agree with you from a values standpoint. You know what I mean? Like, if I work on a job and they tell me I have to punch a puppy in the face, and I compromise my belief of no animal cruelty because it was, my job, and punch that puppy in the face, then I would be in agreement with you. That type of stuff, you need to maintain your values and principles when you're on the job. That they should be one and the same. I absolutely agree with that. But I don't. I kind of have two personas. Three, really, if you want to get down to it. If you really think about it, I have a certain level of public persona on the internet, which you can read on my website or on my Twitter feed, which are
SeanPetrowski.net.
SeanPetrowski.net or Shawnee Funko on Twitter. Those are two wide open channels that that I communicate on. And then there's Facebook, where I have a walled garden approach. I have 500 friends on Facebook, which is a lot, but I have my Facebook profile locked down in a very strict, stringent way, so that only those 500 people can see what I'm doing. So there's certain things that I put on Facebook that never go on my website, that never go on my Twitter account, and that's by design. And there's even an additional layer on Facebook. There's a certain audience of people on Facebook that don't see 95 or 90% of the things that I post, because they're filtered out. And then if you then there's that's the three layers of me in my online persona, and then there's Sean at work, and then there's Sean at home. So five basically faces you have of me. They're all a gradual progression. You know what I mean? They all are. They're not five different people. They're just filtered versions. And I do that on purpose because of the institutions I work for. Both full time and part time. I work as a part time professor at Rider University. So there's certain things that I don't want my students to see. On Googling, or if they Googled my name, and there's things I don't want them to see or find out. Just as there's things I don't want the faculty that I support at my full-time job seeing. So, I maintain those levels, and I'm very strict about that and maintain that. And, it's part of my, the way I handle my public relations, if you will.
It's so interesting that you talk about this difference, because I think that I probably maintained some separation too, and it's only been because of this recent change that I've been able to sort of fully embrace this singular monolithic persona that is not only myself but also my work. And it's been scary, but it's also been really enlightening and really relieving. And when you use the phrase, "I didn't want my students to see it," it triggered a response from me about a recent client engagement where I was asked to help to erase a part of their social media history. And this person was frenetic and scared because they had been called in to their main office in order to discuss photos in which the photos were not that bad, really. But they were very casual photos. There was no alcohol involved. There was no nudity involved. But the argument was that it was conduct unbefitting this person. And it actually made me angry, because I felt like so much was being made of this, and nothing was being made of the people who were bringing attention to it. Nothing was being made of the people who were sharing these photos and sort of snickering behind this person's back. And that was the real issue, was the willingness to look the other way at the people who were specifically trying to harm the reputation of the person in the photo. And it was an honest, complete mistake. And unfortunately, it had more to do with the social network that it was shared on, and its sort of lax controls on how those things are shared, than anything to do with the content of the photo. And I feel like the person in this photo was the person in the photo. In other words, they were just being themselves, and they were sharing content about themselves. But this other persona had to hide who this person really was. And now they're in a situation where they fear for their job. Now they're in a situation where they think that they have done something wrong because they shared a photo with skin in it. Now they think that every photo that they have ever put up is going to be scrutinized for conduct unbefitting. And this has so much more to do with the place that we are in understanding media as we have it now today, and the ease of sharing media, and the lack of understanding about how your persona does not change just because you walk over the threshold of a business. And you have to trust that the person that you've hired is a good person until they prove otherwise, not where an indication exists that could be construed to say that this is not a good person, or that it's a person who is acting in an unbefitting way. I think it's an important issue to consider right now, especially when you have your phone, you take a photo with your phone, and have not thought about the consequence of that photo being used against you. And I think that this is stressed very hard to high schoolers and to new college students, where they encounter situations where a photo would be disastrous. But for the rest of us, there's still a threat. There's still a danger. Unless you can be the person who is in the photo, unless you can completely embrace the person who says X, Y, and Z, no matter what the work situation is, no matter what the context, because very often it will be taken out of context and used against you. So it's an odd place, and there's so little understanding about social media too. You know, the idea that somebody might misconstrue a check-in somewhere as meaning that you were at that place at that time, when it's not the case. People need to know more about geolocation, photography, online personas, and so on before they begin to throw around accusations, because chances are the person is the same legitimate, kind, caring, working person, whether they are behind the lens of a camera or sitting at their desk. And we don't give people the benefit of the doubt, we just accuse.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up, you know, because it got me thinking about my blog. So I've been blogging for 12 years. And if you were to go back in time 12 years, that means 2001. And do you know where I was in 2001?
You were at Ryder?
In a dorm.
Yeah.
And it would not be unusual for me to get boozed up, come back in at 4 o'clock in the morning, and jump on the blog and talk about the crazy nonsense that happened that night. And it's all there. I haven't hidden any of it. It's, you know, you want to go and use the search tool and find it, go for it. And if somebody wants to print out a blog post from 2002 and say, you know, this is who we got working for us, then go for it. And if that ruins my career with that organization, I don't want to work for that organization, because we all grow, we all change, we evolve. Right. And if you were to read my blog from 2002 versus what's going on in 2013, you'd see that I've grown and matured as my blog posts have grown and matured. And so, you know, that's a reflection of me and who I am as a person. You want to know why I am the way I am? That's my history. That's my journal. That's my historical text. You know what I'm saying? You know, we are, as a country, at one time had slaves and didn't allow women to vote. And now, you know, we have civil rights and equal protection of the law. You know what I mean? And right now, same-sex marriage is going through that battle, and, you know, I'm 100% behind those rights as well. And, you know, so just like our country, we as people evolve and change, and we have things in our past we're not proud of. But that doesn't mean we need to hide them, because I think it gives the people that read our histories context about where we are now. And I think if you were to speak about those three historical issues that I just mentioned, that people would say that the context is very important. And it's just as important when it's coming to individuals. So, I leave that out there. That's there for me, and I don't, like I said, I'm not afraid of it. I stand behind it. I'm proud of it. And a lot of times I'll go back and read it, and I'll say, and I see what I was writing, and a lot of times it's hilarious to me. It makes me laugh. I see what an amazing writer I was when I was in the habit of writing every day. I mean, I would post blog postings like 5 to 7 times a week.
Yeah.
For like 4 or 5 years straight. I mean, it was ridiculous. I was on a regimen, and it shows. I mean, I was a very good writer, and that's something about my life now that I'm disappointed in. I don't write as much as I used to on there, and I do. I make a point to do write things that have meaning and depth. But like I said, I'll visit what I've done in the past, and it makes me a little disappointed in what I'm doing now. But nonetheless, it's out there. If people can find it, I'm not afraid of it. And those levels that I've established for my social media, it's not that I'm fearful. It's not that I'm afraid. It's that there's certain information that I'm comfortable with being certain, images, photos, statements, whatever you want to say, that I'm perfectly 100% fine with being 100% wide open. And then there's just certain things, very few things where I'm fine with sharing it with 500 close Facebook friends, but nobody else. And if people want to jump through hoops and get something I've shared to those 500 people's out of that system and print it out and show it to my boss, oh well, that's the world we live in. I'm not afraid of that either. But these are the things that I do just to kind of protect myself, protect my image, because I do represent. I am a teacher. I guess people would call me a role model. That statement is something I really haven't even come to terms with. So I don't want to really jeopardize my standing as a role model, by publicizing my support for a political candidate or a political movement or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's why I have those levels.
Yeah, it's exactly that kind of a thing. I mean, sometimes it's a photo, and sometimes it's a statement that supports equal rights, for example. And just recently, as part of the visual meme that was the Human Rights Coalition's equal rights symbol all over Facebook, many of us changed our icons in order to represent our support for that. And I changed mine a couple times. I changed it from blue and yellow to red because of this, there was ideological representation behind it. And the icon that I have right up now is just my face, and it's got the equal sign over it. And my feeling was, when I posted that photo, that we need to move beyond these individual issues of human rights, such as equal rights for marriage, to equal rights for all purposes. And while we are still singling out groups such as LGBTQ as being horribly oppressed in human rights, women are still horribly oppressed in equal rights.
Right.
And people of color are horribly oppressed in equal rights. It's not as prominent as it once was, because it's not as allowed as it once was socially. Right. But until we continue to have the conversation and speak on these things, and less indiscriminately, or less discriminately, less about Group A not getting Item B, but rather equal rights is a topic for all things. Anytime that we see inequity, or anytime, and I actually piss off a lot of people that I talk to, because somebody will have a statement like, oh, that's just because he's a man, or whatever, and I find that unacceptable. Even in casual conversation, I will usually politely say, well, that's a generalization. I can't really accept that, but I hear what you're saying. Just as a little reminder, like, you just included me in a group of people because I have a penis, that I don't belong in, and I don't really appreciate it. And just because the rest of men do that, I happen to be a man, but I'm not them. So please don't group me in your prejudice. It's not fair to me. Same thing with ethnic groups. Same thing with gender. Same thing with sexual preference. Same thing with people who have tattoos. Same thing with artists. You know, I cannot tell you how many times I have been painted, no pun intended, painted into a corner because I'm an artist. Even though every other artist I know is dramatically different than I am. You know? So it's time for us to start treating individuals as individuals and not thinking so much about labels. And this is important within the context of the conversation we're having, because as time moves on, we become more individuals as part of groups rather than simply a representative of a group.
You there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Oh, I'm glad you said that, because I did not participate in that photo change, and the reason for that is because of the precise reason that you've stated. And I feel that I will publicly go on a mountain, I will march in a parade, I will sign petitions, whatever to show my public support for same-sex marriage. I'll do it because that's something I believe in. But, I'm not someone that participates in a photo change, because I view it as somewhat hypocritical that people, support that, but they don't support, the racial inequalities that exist in our country still, the gender inequality, the ageism that exists. I mean, you go down the list. We are, we've made some progress in all these areas, but we have a lot of work to do. And
I agree. And this particular movement was about this particular group at this particular time because of the Supreme Court
right.
talking about the issue. But there are so many inequities that we completely overlook every day because they don't have a symbol to represent them.
Right.
And I guess that's why I removed the color from mine and sort of made the statement that said, let's not just support LGBTQ. Let's not just support marriage equality. Let's support equality for all humans for all reasons.
Absolutely. I appreciate you articulating that so wonderfully, because, those are issues I don't really talk about publicly, because I'm not in the habit of doing that for a lot of reasons. So, I'm not used to articulating my thoughts so eloquently. So you've done that for me, and I appreciate that. But I'm in complete agreement with everything you've just said there. And, I hope somebody comes up with a symbol that represents human inequality. And
it just so happens that I am a graphic designer, and I should probably work on that.
Well, if you come up with one and you can make a lapel pin for me, I'll wear my lapel pin every day.
All right. I'll be horribly offended if you wear a lapel pin with my symbol on it. But
why?
Because it's a lapel pin.
I like lapel pins.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, okay. So I'm glad we talked about the social lines too, because I feel like it's something we hear about all the time. People losing their jobs for different things that they do on social media, and it's 9 times out of 10 it's ignorance about social media that is the reason that these people lose their jobs or their livelihoods, and it's wrong. It's not fair. And I think the more awareness that we create, the better. And also too, as a service provider or someone who's seeking service, you shouldn't really judge somebody because of a photo that they've put up or whatever. You know what I mean? It's get to know that person first. Make your judgments then.
I mean, and that's another whole topic. We ought to focus on that for a future topic. How easily we let both expectations and judgment creep in, and they go hand in hand. We have expectations, and so we judge based on expectations and not met expectations. But those are our expectations that are causing the issue, not the person who's not living up to our expectations.
Right.
So
That would be a great topic, and maybe we'll talk about that next week.
that sounds great. All right, Sean, well, is there anything else you want to say?
No, I don't have any, no words of wisdom, no closing, departing wisdom for me. How about you?
Nah, I think that we had a great talk. I don't think I could top it.
All right, great. I'll see you next week.
Thank you, sir. I'll talk to you soon.